So let's see how this goes together. I've got this one built and this one is ready to go. The only thing we're going to do while it's apart, I'm going to sand the inside with 220 because it's really just easier to sand them while they're laying on the table versus when the cabinet's put together. So, back in a few. Okay, one last thing that is, it's really important on the back. It's important to cut your back extremely accurate, and it's important to have the panel square because this is what's gonna square up your cabinet. So we have, and so you measure your diagonals. 65 and a 16th. This will go on last after the bottom and sides are on. And where are you? 16 or 16, 65 and a 16th. Come around this way. Boom. So we know our back panel is square. So we can literally, if something isn't jiving on the last final dry fit, we'll know we have to make an adjustment, but we won't make an adjustment to the back because we know that's square. The most important thing is when you clamp this up for the dry fit is to make sure that before you drive any fasteners at all, that you're square. Because if I went and attached this the way it is now, I would be putting this memory in, which means I'd have to pull this side in, which would be putting stress on my joint over there. And so if I take the time to use my clamps and to square this to the front, make sure it's squared down here and up here in the clamps, then I can go ahead and run my pocket hole screw. So I put it together and I see which way the panel needs to go. Now if you'll notice, let's see, I think my panel needed to come in. So you can see I've got my bar clamp at an angle. So once I got the thing held, so I did it one spot at a time, I was holding my panel with the top and I put my bar clamp at an angle and I used my clamp to gently draw this over so that the side's square. And then I took this top off and did the same thing. Can you see? Yeah, it's got an angle to it too. Now the fun part is I found these, and I know they've been around, but for joining a face frame in a 90-degree situation, these are a lot easier than trying to somehow clamp this thing. Now you could clamp it with a bar clamp and all that, and I obviously do. The thing about pocket holes is the pocket stops short of the edge. So the screw is self-driving and it has a little cutter on the end of it. Now we're going into maple, which has no pilot hole whatsoever. And maple generates a lot of heat when a fastener goes through it. So these things need to be tight. Because if they're not tight, the screw will actually push the face frame off and then you're in a fine kettle of fish. You want this to be super duper tight, like so. If you use your impact driver with these, unless your impact driver has your clutch and a torque adjustment, you're gonna twist a lot of heads off of your screws because these particular screws just can't handle a lot of torque, especially when they're going into something like maple, where as the threads go in, it just generates heat. So it's got a couple of strikes against it. So what I've done is I grabbed one of my drills and I put it in higher torque mode, and then I set my clutch. I think I've on this DeWalt, I've got my clutch at 11. So when this flat part of the pan head bottoms out in the pocket, it clutches out, and it saves the screw. The majority of the heads coming off are when the flat part hits the opposing flat part in the pocket, and the impact driver will just twist the head off. So anyway, my first candidate is going to be this guy. I've been having to resand. Right. And there you go. They also make plugs. If you're doing a door, when you open the door, you don't want to see those guys. These are on the inside of the cabinet, so I'm not as worried about it. I may plug them, I may not, I don't know. Probably will. So we're coming around the end here, and we're square, and we look nice and tidy. Here's a thought. If you're combining joinery techniques, namely pocket holes where you're putting steel into the wood and running router bits, if you're in a position where you have to run the dado after the face frame is assembled, in other words, you have steel in it, it's just a good idea to check where your grooves are going and remove any screws before you run your router, or you could run into a big problem and ruin your router bit. It's just a thought. Yeah, I got the internals all nice and nifty. So we are gonna start processing material for doors and drawers, and then I'll probably make the drawers and make the drawers last. But not too bad.